Good morning.
Good morning.
You beautiful beings, you. Powerful. We human beings are powerful beings. We're powerful beings. You know, one of the things that distinguishes us from the animal kingdom, one of the things, is that we have the power to consciously change our lives. We can change our living situation, we can change our relationships, we can change our career, we can change our finances, we can change our bodies, we can change our consciousness, we can grow spiritually. And when you think about change, all change really begins with a decision. And once we've made a firm decision, if we're really committed to that change, then intention forms. It becomes an intention, and energy is generated around that intention, and we begin to take action in the direction of the change we want to see, right? And before long, change happens. Or that's the way it's supposed to go. Doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes we get stuck. Sometimes we backtrack. Sometimes, actually often, we sort of unconsciously sabotage because there is inner resistance to change. Inner resistance to change. So very often the change we really want to see that we've even worked hard for just doesn't happen. Here's what Einstein said about change. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Okay, so that's the piece that New Thought addresses. That we say in Unity, and they say in Centers for Spiritual Living, change your thinking, change your life. And so in New Thought, we do that. We work to release old ideas that are limited, old beliefs, old ideas that are not serving us. And then we work to affirm and embrace ideas that are based on the spiritual reality of us, that we are spiritual beingness, inherently whole and perfect and complete and joyous and peaceful and abundant and magnificent. We affirm that. Yeah, you are. Magnificent. You are. And so we work, we do this, we affirm it, we do affirmative prayer, we sometimes have other people praying for us to affirm our acceptance of this spiritual truth, of this expanded idea of ourselves. That's what we do that first. So the things that we need to do to create change in our life: make a decision, set an intention, begin to take action in the direction of that change. We're adding that missing piece, which is changing our thinking. That's the thing that we do first. We work to change our thinking. But sometimes changing our thinking is not so easy. It's not as easy as it sounds. Because sometimes these old ideas, these old patterns of limited thinking get etched into our brains and our bodies and our energetic field. And they kind of congeal into a set pattern. And it's difficult to release them. This whole idea of patterns. You know, they say that we think around 70,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot. And 90% of them are the thoughts that we had yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that, and the day before that. We're beings who like familiarity and pattern, right? We get up on the same side of the bed every day, go through the same morning routine, fix our hair the same way, take the same route to work, do similar tasks at our job, maybe take the same route home, maybe stopping at the grocery store and buying the same groceries we've bought hundreds of times before. Have a similar evening routine, and then we get up the next morning and do it all over again in the same way. For much of our lives, we are living out this familiar set pattern, which generates the same kind of thinking. in his book, Joe Dispenza. How many people have read that book, You Are the Placebo? It's a really interesting book. He says, thinking the same thoughts leads us to make the same choices. Making the same choices leads to demonstrating the same behaviors. Demonstrating the same behaviors leads us to creating the same experiences. Creating the same experiences leads us to produce the same emotions, and those same emotions then drive the same thoughts. It's a loop. It's a loop that we get trapped in, and we tend to stay there because it's comfortable. It feels familiar. It feels like, oh, those repeated thoughts and those feelings and those behaviors, what I'm doing, that just feels like me. And disrupting those patterns is uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. Because it's those patterns of thinking and feeling and behaving give us a sense of identity. We identify with those repeated thoughts and feelings and choices and behaviors. So, we need to kind of shake things up. If we want to make some positive change in our life, we need to shake it up and get uncomfortable. I want everybody to stand up. If you were able, please stand up. Start shaking it out. Shake off those old patterns. We want to try new things, do things differently. Put your hands up in the air. Turn to your neighbor and high five them. Turn to the neighbor around you and high five them. There you go. Make a silly face. Sing a silly song. Make a silly sound. Woo! Are you feeling uncomfortable yet? Oh, good. I'm glad. That's exactly what we want. We want to get a little uncomfortable. Break out of those patterns. Okay, you maybe see this. Breaking out of those patterns. So this week, I'd like you to consciously change some patterns. Do things differently. Try a different morning routine. Fix your hair differently. Dress differently. Take a different route to work. Answer the phone differently. Hello? Just try it. Maybe you'll get a laugh. Join a new group. Meet new people. Buy different food at the grocery store. Order something you've never ordered before off the menu. Visit someplace new that you've never been before. Take a risk. Shake it up. Now, for some that might sound a little silly, a little arbitrary, but really it's when we break out of this, the set patterns, and we try new behaviors, that opens up our consciousness. And that openness allows us to see the same thinking that leads to the same feelings, that leads to the same choices, that leads to the same behaviors, that leads back to the same feeling and thinking. And then once we become aware of that, it becomes easier to shift, right? Shifting that. And so thinking new thoughts and trying new behaviors actually creates new synaptic connections. So again, Joe Dispenza says, yes, he says that too. As soon as you think a new thought, you become changed neurologically, chemically, genetically. In fact, you can gain thousands of new connections in a matter of seconds from novel learning, new ways of thinking, and fresh experiences. Novel learning, new ways of thinking, fresh experiences. That's what we're after. You see, that's what we're after. So we just kind of need to bring some awareness to it. Bring some awareness to the patterns. Practice mindfulness. Where has my thinking been taking me? Why am I reacting like that? Is that a familiar pattern? Why am I feeling this way? What thoughts have led up to that? Does that feel comfortable and familiar to me? Is that a pattern? So our mindfulness can really, we pay attention. It can bring, like suddenly, wow, okay, I see, that's a pattern. And watch the words always and never. I always get in the longest line. I never win anything. I'm always running late. I always got way too much to do. I can never sleep on a plane. I can't seem to get ahead. Those absolutes that will absolutely limit your experience in life. And they're also big clues to those repeated patterns in our consciousness. Big clues. So paying attention to that again, opening up to that and being mindful of that brings that awareness. And then once we're aware of it, we can consciously shake it loose. Consciously shake it loose. So we want to just really dive into that and pay attention to those patterns in our consciousness. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind is a powerful statement, beautifully stated. In other words, we want to shake loose those old patterns, those old ways of relating to the world that is like everybody else is, relating to the world the same way. And renew our consciousness, which requires us to hit the reset button on our life, hit the reset button on our consciousness, and open to a new way, a more expanded view of our lives. So we just got back. Our family went to Southern California for a family wedding. It was my husband's nephew was marrying a man he loved. They'd loved each other for 10 years. And they finally came together, and people, family and friends from all over, from Texas and Boston and Louisiana, came to witness this and support them, like 140 people. And you could kind of see the older generation from Louisiana, I'm not saying. They, at the beginning of the ceremony, they were just like, it was like a little tight. It's really uncomfortable for them. But there was so much love between these two guys. I mean, there just really wasn't a dry eye in the house. The words, the vows that they exchanged to each other, and what other people said about them, there was just so much love that it was just radiating through the whole place. I mean, you just couldn't not feel it. And by the end of the evening, these guys were celebrating, and they were cheering them on, and they were open, enthusiastic about just welcoming them. They had expanded their consciousness, seeing the whole thing from a higher point of view. That was that power of love. It was really beautiful to see. And then the next day, my husband and I took our daughter Juliet to the place where she was born, where she spent the first 5 years of her life. Olivia was off with a friend that day, and so we just had Juliet. And there was this little sort of shopping center on the corner, and they had a little corner bakery and a pottery paint place that we used to go to all the time, and a big fountain that I used to walk Juliet around, hold her hand and walk her around. And we parked the car and started walking in, and she just cupped her hand over her mouth and was overcome with emotion. And she said, "Oh my God, everything is so small." It's so small. When I was little, it was so big. Of course, it's Juliet that grew. It looked so big when she was small. She literally expanded her consciousness. Well, that's what we want to do spiritually. We want to expand our consciousness and grow into an awareness of our oneness with the One, with the infinite divine, with that infinite love. We want to see from the eyes of our highest self. And then we can look back on all the problems and frustrations and patterns in our lives and see them as small and insignificant because we have grown into a higher awareness of limitless possibility that we are an expression of. What if, instead of having thought patterns that reinforce illness and limitation and staying small, we broke through that? We broke through that and instead grew our understanding that we are surrounded by and supported by a universe that is for us, that loves us, and that is in itself an energy field of love and peace and joy and abundance and intelligence and creativity, and that we are an emanation of that. Imagine, what if we began each day with a clean slate, and looked for the good that was opening up to us in our lives? And by shaking things loose and shifting and changing and paying attention to our thought patterns and our patterns of behavior and feeling and doing things a little differently, we created new avenues for those miracles that are waiting for us to manifest. That just blew open the doors to all of the good that is there waiting for us. Breathe that in. Just allow that idea to settle. Allow that possibility to grow in your consciousness. It's there. It's on the other side of those limited thought patterns. The possibility of living a miraculous, magnificent life is on the other side of our habitual thoughts and our habitual behaviors. And we just need to expand our consciousness and move into an awareness of this infinite divine presence that is supporting us and loving us, and that we are an expression of. That's it. And then we become a light in the world. We become a radiant light in the world. Rumi once said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." You know, we all want to change the world. We all want to be change agents. We all want our voices heard. And that's absolutely innate in all of us. And it begins here, right? It begins here and here. And as we open to that love, that energy field of love that we are, that radiates out from us and sparks the love in someone else. And as they embrace that love that they are, that sparks the love in someone else. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that is how the world transforms. We're in a shake-up time. We are definitely in a time of shaking things up, and it needed to be shaken up. And that's okay, as long as we stay true to this center of love within us and be that presence of love for others, we'll get to the other side. And we will be the change agents. We will be the ones making the difference, because it is that power of love that is the power that shifts others and shifts countries and shifts worlds, that power of love. So that's where we want to be centered. Shaking things up, trying things differently, moving into that new expanded awareness of that one presence, that one energy field of love that we're an expression of. And stay centered there, and then begin to move in the direction that we want to see. Namaste.
Namaste.